Neris, but you can call me Fern. All of my friends in the lymphedema community do so. I currently serve as one of the Texas co-chairs of LEARN. It is my honor and pleasure to be with you here in California this morning. This weather is absolutely incredible. As we landed from Houston, all wrapped up in compression, all I could say was, there's 100%, 80 to 100% humidity in Houston, and just getting here felt like I'd opened up a refrigerator door and stuck my head inside. I'm thrilled at this amazing opportunity to see so many beautiful, familiar faces and equally make new, long-lasting friends. Believe it or not, this is my third Lymph Walk for 2018. In March, I hosted the first walk in the greater Houston area, where Dr. David Savea, Director, Division of Lymphatic Biology, College of Medicine, Texas A&M Health Science Center, was our keynote speaker. Last month was a DC walk. I feel like I'm becoming a Lymphy groupie. If you don't know me or my story, lymphedema has run in my family for 113 years. So just pause and let that sink in. A lot of people do not recognize the word lymphedema, and they don't recognize that it's not a new disease. It's only something that we've begun to learn about. Back to learn, as Dennis said. So my family carries a genetic markers for lymphedema disguisis, a rare hereditary form of LE. I have a double row of eyelashes that are so famously attributed to Elizabeth Taylor. I am not Elizabeth Taylor, except my extra eyelashes scratch my corneas and have affected my vision. Both my father and grandfather had lower extremity lymphedema. My grandfather was bilateral. Bilateral means you have it in both legs. And my father was left leg unilateral. When I was asked to do this, they said, Vern, tell your patient story. I said, hopefully it won't take 100 years to deliver this speech. As part of my advocacy endeavors, I serve as a volunteer patient chair at Memorial Hermann Hospital in Houston, Texas. I help find speakers and topics for discussion at an in-person support group meeting that we have on a monthly basis. And periodically, I give out information on LEARN. One of LEARN's publications has a message that deeply and profoundly resonated with me recently. And Kathy Bates is on the cover of that message. It says, to win a fight, you must first join it. So make no mistake, our time is now. We will rise up and demand increased awareness and education, dollars for research, and better overall care for all people with lymphatic disease. Allow me to explain why I'm personally committed to this cause. I'm in this fight for family. As I just said, both my father and grandfather had lower extremity lymphedema, and it took 24 years for my father to be diagnosed. I know what it is to watch a family member go from doctor to doctor, searching desperately for answers. My uncle had a heart transplant 10 years ago. I only recently learned that heart defects are tied back to lymphedema disguisis. We didn't know that at the time. I now have 2 cousins with it, and I also have a son who hasn't developed lymphedema, but every day I check his legs. I'm in this fight because I remember being a little girl in the early 1980s when my father had 104 fever from yet another bout of cellulitis, and his flaming red leg was padded with ice directly onto the tissue. My mother had my brother in her arms and held my hand and refused for us to be separated in the ER. Extreme temperatures are the worst thing for lymphedema, but no one knew that at the time. My father would go on to suffer more than 100 bouts of cellulitis in his 43 years with lymphedema. They didn't have a name for the root cause. They simply called it cellulitis. I'm in this fight because from about the age of 10 until I went to college, I hand washed my dad's compression, which he faithfully wore every single day. I hated it, but they were so expensive that my mother didn't want to risk ruining them in the wash. I'm in this fight because in 1990, my father went to a surgeon to see if the swelling could be sucked out somehow. Why? Why can you not just stick a needle in there and take out the fluid? He was ahead of his time. The surgeon said, "Son, all I can suggest is that it's best for you to cut that leg off. It ain't doing you a bit of good." My mother began to cry, which angered my father. He said, "If you cut my leg off, what guarantees can you give me that I won't develop this swelling in the other leg?" The surgeon said, I can't guarantee you that." And he said, "Well, then you're not amputating me." I'm in this fight because in May of 1998, the same year that Learn was developed, I was driving down the freeway in Houston, Texas, and saw two legs that looked like my father's one leg on a billboard. By then, I was 4 years into my own swelling. There was a 1-800 number on that billboard, and I literally pulled to the side of the road and wrote down the number. I called my parents at night, and I said, "I think we have something called lymphedema." And my father said, "What the hell is that?" I said, "I have no idea, but there's this 1-800 number, and let's call it to see if we can get some help." So my dad and I went to that appointment together, and we were confirmed to have primary lymphedema that was hereditary. And my dad spent 8 weeks with me. He got treatment, and he was able to reduce his leg by 40%. The sad part about that encounter is that I was denied treatment. They told me that I was too mild and that I didn't have to worry about my swelling getting worse. I was lulled into a false sense of security that this disease was not progressive. I'm in this fight because in 2010 I went to a doctor who laughed in my face at the idea of exercising with bilateral leg lymphedema. Not only did I have to wait for my own LE to advance before anybody would treat me, I was then given misinformation. Research now shows that exercise is excellent for LE. I'm in this fight because in 2014, I could not wear shoes. That's when my father pulled me to the side and he said, "Veronica, I'm only going to say this once, and you better pay attention. You have everything I didn't have. You have something called opportunity. You have an education, a job, health insurance, transportation, and the financial means to get help. You live in Houston, home to MD Anderson Cancer Center, of all places. The only way you're going to get ahead of this is if you fight for yourself. You have all of these tools to help you, and yet what are you doing with them? Do you realize how many people don't have the opportunity in this world?" So that's when I joined the fight and took action. I got help 2.5 miles away from my home and reversed my lymphedema enough to wear normal shoes again. It took me an entire year. I used to think that my family and breast cancer survivors were the only people on the planet that suffered from this disease. I could not have been more wrong. I had this idea for a blog called Lymphy Strong, a dedication to my father and initially multi-generational families with lymphedema. I asked my father if he thought it was a good idea, and he replied, "Do you really think anybody will read it?" I said, "I don't know, I hope so." To date, the blog has reached over 120 countries I can't even pronounce. When I ran my first 5K, my father asked me, "What are you going to run for? Alzheimer's, cancer, ALS?" Took me about 3 days to think about it. I said, "I'm going to run for lymphedema. Nobody runs for lymphedema." And he slammed his fist on the table and he said, That's right, it's our turn. I've got this cane, and my leg is no good, so do you promise to run for me too? I said, I promise. I will run, walk, crawl for as long as my legs will carry me. Today, the Lymphedema Running and Fitness Club has reached participants from the United States, Canada, Japan, Italy, Germany, and Australia. Sadly, on June 29, 2016, my father passed away from stage 4 metastatic adrenocarcinoma, but not before battling one last bout of cellulitis. He fought it in the ICU with an IV going in each arm, but he walked out of that ICU with a walker 7 days before he died. And if he could do that, then I think I can do anything. My father left me, but in his place, I was given a lymphedema family, which many are part of here today. Since then, LympyStrong has grown into a social media platform with 2 online support group communities and a public page exceeding 5,000 worldwide in number. We have helped countless find help and advocacy opportunities. Part of the mission is to connect patients to LEARN chapters and to the LTA if they reside in the United States. On World Lymphedema Day 2018, the page reached 25,000 viewers. Oh, and that compression that I hated to wash. In May of 2017, I went to DC on behalf of the Lymphedema Advocacy Group and the Lymphedema Treatment Act. And again, this past May for LEARN Lobby Days. I never imagined as a girl that I would lobby for Congress to cover compression. This is our patient story and why I joined the fight, with a few examples of how I got involved. I strongly encourage all patients here today to get involved in some form. Everyone is fighting a battle we know nothing about, but everyone also has strengths and talents that can help others. My speech is respectfully and prayerfully dedicated to all who have passed on, waiting for a cure in their lifetime. I firmly believe our time is now, and we can each make a meaningful contribution towards making the world a better place for all people with lymphatic disease. Whether you're doing it for yourself as a patient, as a therapist, as an advocate, as a doctor, or as a caregiver or friend, we thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing the journey with us. We are in it to win it.